All right, YouTube Repo Man 64. I found something really cool and I wanted to come on here and share it with you. It is a Sunday and I'm off today, so I've been kind of studying this new idea. Now, I have always heard that Enoch was born on Sivan 6 and ascended on Sivan 6, but it always, oh, here I go again, not sharing. Let me share the screen. Let's see here. How do I do that? Let me, sorry about that. At least I caught it earlier this time. All right. Let me move me up into the corner there, and let's share the screen. Here we go. Now, I have always thought that Enoch was born on Savan 6. A lot of people's studies that I saw said that. And the studies said that he was raptured on the same day. Well, then why did Enoch live? The Bible's very explicit that he ascended when he was 365 days old. And it dawns on me, the time Jesus was here, everything that counts for Jesus, the 150 days, all the other stuff, only works if you use a timeline where Nissan 1 is either the equilux or the equinox. And I chose the equilux because it doesn't budge. The equinox moves around each year by 6 hours, 12 hours. It's off by a day every now and again. And that just doesn't seem to me to be as consistent as we see God is with time. So I chose the equilux. The equilux never budges. I've showed you that on March 16th, it's the day of equal parts. There's a passage in Enoch 72:20 that says the day equalized. Everyone ran with equinox when they heard that because it's true. On the equinox, the sun does cross the equator on that day. And that is March 20th, sometimes March 21st, sometimes March 19th. It moves around. But there's one day that never budges, and that's the equilux. That day moves by seconds each year. And you can look 600 years into the future on time and date, go down to sun and moon and put in Jerusalem, Israel. And on that day, go 600 years into the future, and it'll still be March 16th. It's always been March 16th. So, with that out of the way, just in case there's new listeners wondering why I chose that day, that's the day. March 16th is the day of equal parts. The next day would be Nissan 1, March 17th. St. Patrick's Day. A lot of stuff on the Gregorian calendar lines up perfectly with the Hebrew calendar. Now, Jesus, in his count, was counted 364 days in a year. But Enoch, in his count, was counted 365 and a quarter days each year. So we would go 3 years with 365 days and then 1 year with 366 days. The reason for that is there are actually only 23 hours and 56 minutes in a day. Using the Earth, a fulcrum point on the Earth pointing at a distant star on the opposite side of the sun. But as the Earth travels around the sun, it has to readjust to keep solar noon by 4 minutes each day. Now, that out of the way. When Jesus, um, when the flood began here in the Bible, it says, from this day here forward 150 days, we will have to land on the day the water begins to recede. That's the day of the cross. And in the seventh month and 17th day, right here, 153 days later, after the flood began, is the day Jesus rises. And the day Jesus rises is the day that the ark rested, right here. The ark rested on Mount Ararat, reverse the curse. Okay. So we've laid out the groundwork. We have 364 days in relationship to Jesus. He is God. He views the earth from way out there. So the day that he would view is the day the earth takes to rotate exactly one time to that distant star. The day that Enoch would view would be the 4 extra minutes per day where the earth has to continue to spin to keep solar noon, solar noon. So I asked myself when they said, well, Enoch was born on Sivan 6, I said, well, then why would he be raptured on the same day? It makes no sense. If Enoch represents the Gregorian calendar, which I think he does, otherwise Enoch, the Bible would have recorded 364 days, but it didn't. It recorded 360 years, 365 years, which is pointing us directly at the Gregorian calendar or the Julian calendar. Both calendars are the same. The Gregorian's nothing more than a 10-day fix because the Julian calendar was off by a great deal each year. And by the time we reached 1582, it was off by 10 days. So they just fixed it. This is the Julian calendar. The name of the months, the name of the days, everything is the same. The only difference is the amount of exact time solar noon is in each day, which is why they were off by 10 days by the time 1582. And by now, I think it's 13 or 14 days off if you continue to view the Julian calendar. So be why would Enoch ascend on the same day that he was born? If we're going to point to the Gregorian calendar, it would have to be 365 and a quarter days. So I said, all right, a lot of studies have shown Sivan 6 as Enoch's birth. Now, remember, Enoch means Hanukkah. Dr. Berry gave us a very detailed video on that subject. So Hanukkah, Enoch, Enoch, Hanukkah. It's the same. I began to ask myself, Enoch has to have something to do with Hanukkah. Enoch must have something to do with Hanukkah. But why is he born in Sivan 6? So I went out the extra 3 months. And Enoch, I had him rising on Elul 6, which is August 20th. Nothing's there. It makes no sense, but I put it down anyway. I asked Sister Sandra, she put it in there like this. So she puts Enoch rises. Now, today, I saw a video, and I'm going to show you who made that video here in a few minutes. And they said, and I like the study because he references some material that he found that says Enoch, in fact, was born on September the 24th, and 365 years and a quarter, which would be another 3 months, would land you right here on Christmas Day, Hanukkah. Now, I think God was telling us that he is viewing both calendars. Hanukkah is actually here on December the 7th plus 17 hours, so December the 8th, going through December the 14th plus 18 hours, which is December the 15th, and the head of the month would be Tevet 1, which is December the 16th, right here. It begins to fall away by a day over time. Remember, for a long time, I was trying to put the day here, put the day there, and it was 24 hours. And sometimes I knew the event took place in the morning, sometimes I knew it took place in the afternoon, and it wasn't matching. And then this dawned on me a few weeks ago or a month ago, and Sister Sandy put it all on here. She just put 4 minutes a day, and this timeline you can get at her website, but she just added 4 minutes every day. You get 4 minutes on the 17th, 4 minutes on the 4 more minutes on the 18th, so being 4 and 4. She counted all the way through. We have one little mistake here on where I thought Enoch might have been born. This is May 21st. I think she put in May 21st. That being said, I listened to this video, and then now I have his start date, his birth date here, 365 and a quarter days later, because if Enoch is going to represent the Gregorian calendar, he has to represent the entire calendar. And the entire calendar is 365 and a quarter days long. So if he's born here in 365 and a quarter days later, he ascended the same day Jesus was conceived. Tevet 10, December the 25th. Always have to remember those minutes. So we would count from, for example, midnight right here, 18 hours would be noon, and it would be 6:52 p.m. on December the 25th if we were going to use the Gregorian. Now, if we're going to use the Hebrew, it would be Tevet 10. There never has been Never will. It's not found anywhere in the Bible that there was 360 days in a year. They are only saying that because of the 1,060 count. God is purposely leaving out these four essays. We are to add them back in. Count 1,260 days actually means 1,274, but that's another video. All right. Now, we are looking at a high watch date, December the 16th, tomorrow at 6:20 p.m. on the Gregorian, or at sunset on Tevet 1. Yes, sunset on Tevet 1 right here becomes the next day on the Hebrew calendar. So yes, it's very confusing to line them up together, which is why I believe that God said, "You will not know the day or the hour." Because quite frankly, I don't know if he's going to use the Hebrew calendar or not, or if he's going to use the sliver moon. Enoch, meaning Hanukkah, and Hanukkah this year landing on Christmas is a very rare occasion. It doesn't happen that often. I think in the year that Enoch, and if anybody would ever go back to that, I think in the year Enoch left, Hanukkah fell on Christmas Day. This event doesn't take place very often. So was God telling us that this is the date of the rapture because Enoch left on that day? And I'm beginning to wonder if that's not the day that Elijah left as well, because what God has done before, he will do again. There's nothing new under the sun. I think that Elijah left on this day, the day Jesus was conceived, and I think that Enoch left on this day. And we saw in Wackadoodle Samoan's video, Matt made a video about how God tore the fabric of time. When he went up into the mountain, he was in a fabric of time where he was there when Moses was up there, and he was there when Elijah was there. That's why they saw Moses and Elijah, the two witnesses that we believe are going to come back during the period of time to warn everybody, but be killed halfway through the 7 year tribulation. So at that moment when Jesus ascended, that's the same moment that Moses and Elisha were there. Now, Jesus is conceived here. This is why I know that God is using a 364-day calendar for Jesus, and he's using a 365 and a quarter day calendar for Enoch. When Jesus was conceived, 280 days exactly to the very day, 40 weeks, the term of a pregnancy. Jesus didn't cut it short. He didn't go any further. Lands right here on Tabernacles. The night of September the 29th, he was born, becoming September the 30th. Jesus was born here on Tabernacles. Exactly. Now, the distance between Tabernacles and him being conceived is exactly 84 days. Now I have another 84 that jumps up at me. We have 33 and a half years Jesus is here. We have 3.5 years of his ministry. We have him in the grave for 84 hours or 3.5 days. And now we see the distance between the time that he was born and conceived. The leftover distance is 84 days. However, for Enoch to be born here, it is exactly 85 and a quarter days. And I'm going to show you that. Enoch being on the Gregorian or Julian calendar, remember back in Jesus' time, they were on the Julian. And every time the sliver moon moved it over, Enoch gave a very strict warning. Very strict. That's why it amazes me that people are like, this is the Enoch timeline. No, it's not. You will either, if it's the Enoch, just because you say 364 days doesn't make it the Enoch timeline. 364 days doesn't create an Enoch timeline. The only way an Enoch timeline can begin is never by the moon, ever. He gave a very strict warning about it. He said that I fear that they will begin observing the moon and use the moon and come in, call a good day bad and a bad day good. He said that they will do that, and he was fearful of it because they will lose their way and they won't be able to count their days properly. And that's exactly what they did. That's why Hanukkah falls here. He was born on, did I do that? No, he ascended on Hanukkah. He ascended on Hanukkah. Enoch did. He was born up here on the Day of Atonement. 85 days difference between the two, or still 280 days, 40 weeks. So we have that extra day and a quarter in there. Now, Jesus being conceived here, Enoch being ascended, and I think honestly, Elijah, and I would be curious for anyone's study to find out if Elijah ascended during the wintertime. And for this date to be Hanukkah, it doesn't happen very often. How often does it happen? Was God telling us? Because he said, I go up to the Feast of Dedication, and it was winter. Because the Hebrew calendar, though wrong, God is still viewing it. Because from man's perspective, it is correct. How often does Hanukkah land on Christmas? That's how often a rapture could occur. If it doesn't land on Christmas at any other point in time, the rapture could not occur. Of course, the rapture couldn't occur until there were 6,000 years, 2,000 years, or 1,993 years from Jesus. And, from 1940, it all has to fit together. This is one of the few years where this won't happen again for quite some time, where Hanukkah lands on Christmas. This is one of the few times where we ascend at the same time as Enoch ascends, and quite possibly Elijah. I just didn't do that study. I didn't research that. Now, let me go forward from here on what I found. This is a promise that to Luke, the Luke group, the bride, that we will know the order of all things. The closer we get, the more we will begin to understand the order of these things and how they fall into place and how they mesh. It's been driving me nuts. Enoch, Sivan 6, made no sense. And then his ascension day on that day literally made no sense. Either one of them made no sense to me, but I put it on there anyway because I hadn't studied it, but I have been studying it. All right. Now, here's the extra day. The Bible says that mankind will be on the earth for 6,000 years, but there's a clause in there that we missed. And that clause is this: when Noah was on the ark, he was above the earth. He wasn't occupying the earth. That time didn't count. That time is 364 days and 10 days because Noah was on the ark for 1 year and 10 days. Then we have this other problem. Not a problem, but another mathematical issue to deal with, and that is in Exodus 12, God said, "This now is the head of your year. This now is the head of your year." Here we are. Let's just use this as an example so I can help you understand what I'm seeing. The year changes to the year 2024 in September. It's 2024 on March 17th, and God hands down the first of 613 laws to Moses. The very first one, he says, "This now is the head of your year." And in the 10th day, which is the triumphal entry, which is the day they took the lamb in while they were in Egypt, 4 days later, after you take this lamb in, you will kill it. You will sacrifice it. And Jesus went to the cross 4 days after the triumphant entry. So with this stories, God reuses these dates constantly, only to point to Jesus, right? So here we are. We're standing here on March 17th. The year changed to 2024 back in September. But God says, now, this is the head of your year. So March 17th, 2024 will be March 17th, 2024 until March 17th, 2025. Does that mean that we just lived an extra 6 months? What about those 6 months we already put in? No, we lived those months. You see what I'm saying? So you look forward to the next year to change the springtime calendar over to the following year. So we have this extra 182 days. And when I added them all up, I was quite surprised. Exclusively, is this exclusively? Inclusively, it adds up to 556. It's 555 inclusive. Get those two mixed up. Anyway, it's 555 days, which that number in and of itself is quite incredible, 555. So I went on to look to see what the 555 days might lead me to. A lot of people said on September the 23rd of 2023, the Day of Atonement, it should be the rapture. Many people were looking at that. And when it passed, we were heartbroken. But I think what happened was we were viewing, we were forgetting these 555 days where 6 months of it we didn't actually do, and a year and 10 days of it, we weren't even on the planet. So 555 days would take you from the Day of Atonement to March 30th. I put flood, but March 30th is the day of the cross. That is very difficult to make something like this happen. When I go and say, well, the rapture should have occurred here, but here it is, March 30th of 2025. Now, I'm not saying the rapture is going to be March 30th of 2025. I'm only saying that God has money in the bank. He has a bag of money, and that bag of money is time. Time is on his side because this amount of time um, he can use in his favor, let's just say. So I continue to go on to do the math, and I want to know. That's where I should have put the word flood, not any. The other one was uh, the cross. So I wanted to know from the Revelation 12 sign from September 23rd, the Day of Atonement, to the flood, it's 405 days. Very interesting number, 405. But remember, the Bible explicitly says from the day that God shut the door of the ark, and that was October 31st, the very first day would be November the 1st. All Saints' Day. He shuts the door of the ark, and 150 days later, the Bible records that the waters began to recede. And then on the 153rd day, the ark settled on Mount Ararat. So here we are, and we have a remainder of 150 days because it's 555 days exclusive. Can't remember that. So, of course, we have always known, or at least on my timeline, I've always known that 150 days after the flood, day one of the flood, 150 days will bring us to the cross of March 30th of 2025. If you were going to say the rapture should have happened on atonement, and you add back in those 555 days, you will land at the cross as your outside date for a rapture. However, I don't think that's the day of the rapture. That's the day that 6 months out exactly, Jesus was born, because he was born on September the 30th. 6 months to the very day he went to the cross. That's those 6 months that God said, this now is ahead of your year. The timelines, if you could literally cut off 180 at 182 days, you could cut a line and overlap, and almost all the events match exactly to the second 6 months. They start falling away a little bit based on the Gregorian and Hebrew calendars, but if you overlap them, they're almost identical. So you have Jesus born on September the 30th. You have a Day of Atonement 10 days later as being the day Jesus rode in on the donkey, as the day the day that the Jews brought in the lamb to be sacrificed on Nisan 10. It overlaps perfectly. And then on the 15th, when Jesus was born, he would have also 6 months overlay gone to the cross on March the 30th. So did I say September the 30th, September the 29th, 30th? But it overlaps very nicely, and it's very well understood at that point. Now, we have another number to contend with. That number is 2,300 days. So I said, all right, if the Day of Atonement, and you can ask, a lot of scholars will tell you that the millennium or the 7 year tribulation must end by the Day of Atonement of some year. We've surmised many different years, but 2031 seems to be the year that we look at because it appears as though Jesus went to the cross in 31 AD. I've thought for a long time it was 30 AD, but I think, again, we have to deal with those 555 days. So it appears to be 30 AD, but it's 31 AD. So Day of Atonement, September 23rd, Revelation 12 sign, all of those land on this day, 2031. You subtract 2,300 days and you land on Pentecost. That's very interesting. It lands on Pentecost of June 6th of 2025. I believe this is now Feast of Weeks or Shavuot lands on May 30th, 7 days prior to this. So it's a very interesting how this lands using the furthest out date. All right. We have another two numbers that we have to contend with, and those numbers are 1,260 and 1,290. So I took the 1,260 times 2, it's 2,520. I used the Day of Atonement. Now remember, the Day of Atonement is on the 24th, but at sunset on the 23rd, it becomes the 24th, and it becomes the 25th at sunset on the Day of Atonement, becomes the 25th. So around this number, 2,520 days, 1260 times 2, again, will land on the flood in October 31st, 2024. All of us were looking at this date saying, hey, this should be the rapture because of the numbers. The numbers line up too perfectly, and they did. They lined up real nice with October 31st. I think the 1,260 days took us to May 14th also, when Israel will be 80 years old. We forgot about those 555 days. There's somebody out there who's much more mathematical than myself that will dive into this, I believe, and see a lot more than I'm seeing. So I also took the Day of Atonement, September the 23rd, which again at sunset on the 23rd, it becomes the 24th, which is the Day of Atonement. I took 1,260 days plus 1,290 days. We have to deal with that 1,290. And when I did it, it lands on Jesus' birthday, September 29th at nightfall, becoming September the 30th. So we have 2,550 days combining those two numbers. Again, they keep falling. So what leads me to believe the 7-year tribulation is over with on September 23rd of 2031. And yes, we have passed September 23rd of 2024. And so that either means that the rapture, we say pre-tribulational rapture, but is that the correct term? Is the correct term not? Because what we see is the seals being opened. Is the correct term perhaps pre-seals? There's no wrath until those seals are open. So it's not pre-wrath. It's pre-tribulation because it's pre-seals. The seals initiate the tribulation, but something's being held back. We have this 555 days to deal with, and I wrestle back and forth with the idea, the concept, trying to understand. We've passed this now by nearly 2 months, and what's going on? That's nearly 60 days at this point. October, November, and December 25th will be 60 plus 25 would be 85 days. That's where my point was about Enoch. Enoch, 85 days later, was ascended 85 days after his birthday. Jesus went to the cross 84 days after his birthday. It's off by 1 day. And I think that's because Enoch is speaking to the Gregorian calendar. If not, he would have, like I said, he wouldn't have been here 365 years. He would have been here 364. So that is technically then not the Enoch calendar that we all call it. It's God's calendar, honestly. I mean, it's the stellar calendar is what it actually is. So the flood, in fact, happens on the anniversary of it, October 31st of 2024. That is a fact. Now, there is a difference between the 2,520 days and the 2,300 days by 220 days. And when I do this math, Pentecost lands actually on June 6th. So we're off by a day. And again, Enoch plays in that extra day over this period of time. So we have Pentecost, from the flood to Pentecost. The numbers are beginning to line up very nicely. This is let me show you this gentleman first, because he's the one that led me to search for it. His name is Rapture Reese. He made the most incredible video, and please go watch it because he does a very good explanation of why Hanukkah means Enoch. He believes that the rapture will happen on Hanukkah of the Hebrew calendar and on Christmas of the stellar calendar, let's call it, December the 24th, 25th. And again, how often is it that Hanukkah does land on Christmas and it was winter? God is basically telling us that in this year that Hanukkah will land on Christmas because uh, winter started, according to them, on December the 21st. According to my timeline, it starts on December the 16th. That's December the 16th. I showed you the figure eight is when we reach that crescendo, that 23.5 degree mark, and we linger in that 23.5 degree mark for 14 days, 15 days, and then we come back out of it, and the days become longer. And the days become longer right in the center of that 15-day period. Right in the center is the 21st. But please go watch this video. It was mind-blowing. I really appreciated his video. He did a very good job, and he's the one that set me off on this study here. I found this, or perhaps maybe he found it. I don't know where I got this from, or if he led me to this, but Moses 7, Enoch's vision of the earth, the Savior, and Zion's return. Enoch being born on September the 24th, the Day of Atonement, ascended 365 years and a quarter year, 365 and a quarter years later on December the 24th. The last chapter, we identified how Enoch had begun to see through the eyes of the Lord. His sorrow for the sins of the world had brought him to tears. However, his vision of the ministry and the life of Jesus Christ, think about it, Enoch was taken out of time. He was taken to where he was taken to the Godhead. He could see all of time himself. And Jesus reveals himself to Enoch and says, "Don't worry, I've got this covered." However, his vision of the ministry and life of Jesus Christ had begun to bring him comfort. He knew that every child that came from him, and we all came from Adam, but Enoch as well, that they were all corrupt and that they were all doomed. And he was upset over how badly all of his children became, but there was left with him comfort and hope in Jesus. The Lord revealed to Enoch that through the atonement, through his birthday of Christ, there was eternal hope. The record of Enoch's vision of the day of the coming of the Son of Man, even in the flesh. He knew that God himself came in the flesh. When did he come in the flesh? He came when he was conceived on Christmas Day. He came when Enoch left. Again, God tore the fabric of time, and Enoch was there to witness when Jesus left heaven. Jesus didn't leave heaven when he was born. Jesus left heaven when Mary conceived. His on the day of conception, on Christmas Day, which in that year, as Spinebreaker looked it up, in that year, Hanukkah fell on Christmas, and it does that again this year, and it did it again at some other point. Throughout history, that event where they do line up, things have happened, and I forget what it was. It was very substantial. This particular Hanukkah, where it landed on Christmas, it was very substantial what had happened. And I don't recall what it was now, but I don't think I have a picture of it, but something did happen. So go watch Rapture Reese, this video right here, the Hanukkah Rapture of the Church. Time is fast running out. Now, a year to Jesus, 364 days, 280 of them he spent in the womb of Mary, and he was born. That leaves a remainder of 84 days to complete the year. Enoch, however, was conceived. Let's see, what did I put? Oh, this is Jesus was born on September 30th. His very first day was October the 1st, and he was conceived here, and it left 85 days. If you view it that way, we have that extra day we always have to contend with. I was curious about Martin Luther. And the last video, I said, I said Pentecost. I meant a Pentecostal church, but it was the and there was I didn't have time to answer the question properly. The King James Version is a near perfect Bible, but it is a replica of the original. I don't worship the King James Version, but it's the version that I use. It is the most accurate, but there are mistakes. And one of those mistakes made was the word rapture. They watered it down to being the word caught away or caught up, catch up, and then people will run around. There's no word rapture in the Bible. Yes, there is. It's caught up. Then we have the word that we find in Second Thessalonians as apostasia or apostasy. If you use the word apostasia, you're saying departure. If you use the word apostasy, you're saying the word fall away. The Catholics chose, and this is why there was one of the reasons why there was a huge split between the churches. And this is the reason why the Catholic Church chose that word, because they were trying and they put their own emotions into translating that word. They made a mistake. They should not have done that. When they translated that word, every other Bible says departure. The King James is the only one that says falling away. The word is actually departure. Either way, from the viewpoint, Second Thessalonians is not speaking to the bride. We won't be here to see this great falling away. We are the great falling away. We are the great departure. They will see it, the tribulation saint. We will not be here to see the man of sin revealed. They will be here to see the man of sin revealed. The tribulation saint will see those things. Second Thessalonians is not speaking to the bride. First Thessalonians is. It's very clear that First Thessalonians is when we're caught up or raptured. Second Thessalonians is speaking explicitly to the tribulation saint. And however you want to translate that word, it doesn't matter, because either way, we aren't here to see either event. We are not here to see the man of sin revealed. We are not here to see the departure or the falling away, whatever they want to call it. But if you do a little study, and people seem to get upset, no, the King James Bible is perfect because the numbers, this and that. You are correct. Just because you translate a word apostasia or apostasy, the word is almost identical and it doesn't change anything in the numerical value that they search for in the distance between numbers, between words and the amount of words. It doesn't change anything in the Bible when they did that. God made certain that the King James Bible was intact, but again, the Catholic Church interjected that. They were upset at the Protestants because they were breaking away from the Catholic Church because they didn't like the things the Catholic Church was doing. They were worshiping Mary. They were selling bills of your place in heaven. You could buy that. They were teaching people. Martin Luther was literally kneeling in rocks and beating himself with a whip to purge himself of sin. As he was on his knees reading his Bible, he was hitting himself. He was just wrecking his back, bleeding everywhere. He's reading his Bible. He stands up one day. He writes a 95 uh, reasons why thesis, and he nails it to the door of the church in Wittenberg, Germany. Barely 4 years later, the Catholic Church would brand him a heretic, and the Holy Empire would condemn him as an outlaw. Martin Luther realized after he was trying to get to heaven under his own accord. He was trying to punish himself for his sins, every sin he thought of. He'd hit himself. He nailed this to the door on October the 31st in 1517. This is just before the Protestants began to break away. Martin Luther realized that there was no way he could pay for one tiny sin that he did, no matter how hard he hit himself. There was no way he could pay for that sin, that he finally came to recognize the only way out of this is by the blood of Christ, and that's it, and that's all. And then he made his 95 reasons why and hung it to the door of the Catholic Church. And here we have it, 1611, about 100 years later, the Catholic Church translating the King James Version and we say it's perfect, and it is, but there are flaws. And one of those flaws was the Catholic Church interjecting, making a stab at the Protestant Church that the word meant falling away because they were leaving the Catholic Church, and they were trying to scare people into staying with the Catholic. Do you really want to fall away? Are you sure you don't want? I mean, go ahead and fall away, but it's written right here. But that's not the correct word. The correct word is departure. All right, let me keep going here. It is settled. We shouldn't have any more comments about flat Earth. These people, remember, we've been seeing this all over Facebook and YouTube, that these people were going to go to Antarctica. They were going to stand out there for 24 hours. If the sun did not set, if it did not set, then the Earth is round. If the sun does set, then the Earth is flat because the sun cannot, on a disk, be on the other side of the disk and on this side of the disk at the same time, causing the sun to be up. Now they're already saying it was a green screen, but they wore a badge on them that the green screen will not recognize and will change colors if they had a green screen. And so that badge, or maybe it's up here, I don't know where it's at, but whatever the badge is, they thought of everything. They knew all of the ways that people will try to continue to hang on to this flat Earth concept, and they had 40 cameras out there recording the entire event, and they had actual hardcore flat earthers out there saying the sun is going to set, it's going to be on the other side of the plate or the disc or whatever had the flat earth, it'll be on the other side, and there's no way the sun will shine over here. I don't know how, if people understand how light works, but if there's a light far enough away and it's bright enough, I'm still going to see it over here on the flat Earth. But if it's round, then the sun would stay over in Antarctica because right now the sun's down. The longest day in on that side of the planet will be, happening here on December the 21st, which it's the shortest day for us here up on the north side of the equator. So that should be the end of it. Please go watch the final experiment, I think it was. Please go watch this, and we can lay this flat Earth thing to rest. And like I said, they're going to bring out, once they get back from Antarctica, they're going to bring out the footage from these 40 cameras, and they will. Uh, I mean, we already knew personally. I already knew the Earth was round. That my calendars don't work if the Earth is flat. They just don't work. And I I'm not trying to cause any strife to anyone who thinks the Earth is flat, but please keep an open mind. Go watch this and let this professional and the flat earthers that were there, because the flat earthers are like, yeah, this shouldn't be happening. We can't explain why this is happening, and so they said, we are men of our word, and we said if the sun stays up for 24 hours and doesn't set, we must be on a globe, is what they said. And so that's exactly what they did. And those flat earthers agreed that the planet must be a globe at that point. Oh, that's the picture I'm going to use for that. Let me see what I got going on here. I got sent this by William Pierce. I showed you his YouTube channel the other day. He's building timelines, which I love. And he's going in here and he's showing the rapture on December the 25th. A lot of people are looking at this day, December the 25th, 2024, and the first seal being opened. And a lot of people are also seeing January 20th as being the beginning of tribulation, the first seal being opened. And then we go on forward. I think it would be personally on the Day of Atonement of 2031, a little bit further out, but this is his timeline. This is what he's looking at here. There is a thought circulating that while we are not seeing a seal open yet, and we are in heaven to watch that first seal open, the 7-year timeline has begun, and we are encompassed in it. And why I'm even entertaining this idea for even a moment is because of this and what we know happened. We know Jesus said on the cross, "It is finished." It's done. It's over. Then why did he have to go to Hades? What did he do when he went to Hades for those 84 hours? When he went to Hades, he went there to lead captivity captive. What moment do you think that was when he went to Hades? What fabric of time could we relate that to? And I would relate it to the moment that Moses came down off the mountain, threw down the tablets, and said to the people, "Choose this day whom you will serve, that golden calf, or will you follow God, the one that led you out of Egypt?" And they said, some said, "We'll follow the golden calf." Well, he ground up the golden calf into powder and made them drink from it, and they died, or this earth opened up. There was a whole thing that happened to them. Why in the world, after seeing all of what they saw, would they ever choose the golden calf? But they did. And the same thing happened to Jesus in hell. He shows up in Hades. We'll call it Hades. He shows up in Hades. He said it's finished on the cross, but he's dead for 84 hours, 3.5 days. His ministry was 33 and a half years. I'm sorry, he was alive for 33 and a half years. His ministry was 3.5 years. He was in the grave for 3.5 days. The distance between his birth, his conception, from his birth back to the date of his conception, his first year old, would be 84 days. The 84 keeps coming into play. The old woman in the temple was a widow for 84 years. This 84 keeps jumping up. 84 is very significant to God. So he's in Hades and he's standing there and he's telling everybody, "Who will follow me?" You're all here in Hades. Now, they're not separated from God yet. The lake of fire is the separation from God. They're in Hades, and I don't think it's that bad for them yet. The lake of fire is bad. That's total separation from God. That is not a good place to be. But in Hades, they weren't tormented. They weren't suffering. They were just there waiting. So Jesus shows up and they're like, "Well, you know what? You say you're the Son of God." Now he's doing this all over again. He did this for 3.5 years. Now he's doing it for 3.5 days. And he says, "I'm the Son of God. I've come here to rescue you and take you with me. We're going to take paradise out of here and we're going to go to heaven." And the people there know the law. And the law says, you can't come here and make that claim without a witness. The guy in the cross right next to him, the guy in the cross right next to him that Jesus said, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Paradise was located in Hades at the time. Jesus says, "Yeah, I brought this guy. Ask him." The thief stands up. "I watched him die on the cross. I watched him. I died after him. I watched the sun set for 3 hours. I watched the earth completely tremble. I saw him die because I saw the Roman soldier poke him in the side and water came out." Sorry. And water came out and I knew he was dead. I watched the entire thing and I died very shortly thereafter. And I went to be with him in paradise, just like he promised. Sorry. I went to be with him in paradise, just like he promised. And I'm here as a second witness to say that all these events took place and that he is the Son of God, and follow him now. And still, people in Hades chose not to follow him. They still chose to stay with the golden calf. They still chose to stay right where they were. Why would anybody choose the golden calf? Why would anybody do such a thing? But they will. Their pride, they're hard headed. They won't listen. We warn and we warn and we warn, and we get these jokes and these mean comments. And we're just trying to warn you that this event is coming and it's going to be very bad. It's not funny. It's no time to play. I get up here and I try to keep a light attitude. I'm sorry about this. I normally don't get like this. I try to keep a light attitude about it because I want you to love the gospel like I do and pay attention to what I'm saying because it's very important. But your soul is on the line. And if you don't cast off all your works and accept the blood of Christ and the blood of Christ alone, you're going to be left here to go into the tribulation. And that's fine. You have a second chance. You have a second chance to cast it all off and accept Christ into your heart and become a tribulation saint. That's fine. You don't want to go to that lake of fire. It's a horrible place. It is not a place like Hades was when Jesus went there. It is a place, a complete separation from God. You'll never come out of there ever again. You're done. Do you understand? You're done. All right. I gotta go because I can't stop this. All right. We'll chat with you. Go to a quiet place by yourself. Nobody needs to know. You don't need to tell anybody. And accept the Lord into your heart. We're out of time. He's coming back. I think we're in it, the window right now. We're seeing all these crazy things go on that nobody can explain. Just hang in there. We're almost there. Um, like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll chat with you all again later.